Hey Nick, thanks for your extensive comments. I don't usually watch my own videos, and it's usually because when I do, I end up disagreeing with the particular way I worded things. Because once you start speaking, uh, the whole thing just kind of puts itself together, and then if I go back and watch it afterwards, I'll want to put it together in a different way, um, and then I may proceed to try to do that and end up saying it in a way that I'll later come back and disagree with as well. So. Um, Obviously, we just keep going. But this metaphor of dipping into a field of consciousness, depending on the complexity of your biological structure, and complexity is kind of like a mishmash or combination of quantity and quality. Um, that idea is just one way of getting us out of thinking about consciousness as some kind of stuff that's in the brain or um, produced by the brain, sort of this sparks flying off of it, as you said. Um, because I think in order to put the brain first and say that consciousness is derived from it, we're making the mistake of, um, one philosopher called it the fallacy of misplaced concreteness. We're saying that some object, the brain, is more real than our experience of being, and it's our experience of being that allows us to come to know the brain as an object, and we can never know our own brain as an object, only another brain. And so it's as though we replace, if we think consciousness is sort of an epiphenomenon thrown off by the biology of the brain, we're replacing an abstraction, this objective brain, which is never it's never going to be our own, because our own brain is always already experiencing. We replace this abstraction of a brain for what we should realize came first, our own concrete lived experience of being brain. Um, so it's like we get mixed up when we try to derive consciousness from the brain. And I was talking in my last video as though consciousness was first and the brain was derived from it. I didn't exactly say that, but that's the direction I seem to have been heading in, and I wouldn't want to say that either. Um, it seems to me, though, that the more complex the matter gets, the more autonomous it becomes. And what is that exactly is complexity? Well, and by autonomous, I mean experientially autonomous. I mean, for all we know, the sun, with all its electromagnetic complications, has some sort of awareness, but it doesn't have limbs and it doesn't move around, although maybe it doesn't need to. It can just reach out and do what it needs to do with electromagnetic radiation. But speculation. Um, the complexity increases the um, the beingness, the intricacy of the beingness, the depth of the beingness of whatever the organism is. So, and by organism, I'm talking about any organized whole. Now, a pencil is not an organized whole. It's an artifact. It's put together by a human being or by a machine built by a human being. What's organized, or what the organized wholes are the molecules and atoms that make this up. Molecules have a certain structure which arises naturally. Atoms have a certain structure which arises naturally. The structure of the pen didn't arise naturally, at least if we want to make the somewhat arbitrary distinction between a human invention and the natural um, byproduct. So the atoms are an organized whole, a bunch of protons and neutrons with electrons around them, and it's kind of balanced and it's doing its thing, maintaining its wholeness. It maintains its wholeness because it's somehow aware of what's going on in its environment, in the same way that a cell maintains its wholeness because there's some kind of awareness there, um, driving it to eat, to excrete, to reproduce. And as we go up the chain of complexity, um, awareness becomes more and more important for maintaining the tasks that keep this organism alive. Um, but the point is, when we talk about consciousness, we should only attribute it, I think, to organized wholes. We call them organisms in the biological world, but I think atoms and certain macromolecules are also organized wholes, self-organizing wholes. Let's put it that way. The self is the awareness. It's not an I or an ego within the awareness. The self, in this case, is just the whole awareness of whatever the organized, self-organizing whole is we're talking about. Um, so I'll just stop there because I think I've probably confused myself with what I just said. Maybe it, some sense got out. I think the part about the brain being um, the source of consciousness is what I really wanted to get across. There could be more videos coming. I'll go back and watch parts of the 35 or 40 minutes or so that you posted and see if anything else comes up. But that's all for now, so thanks for your response.